Welcome back to the morning mist above and beyond schizophrenia. It's where we're coming from, it's where we are, it's where we're going above and beyond. So, this video we're going to talk about schizophrenia and anosognosia. Or, anosognosia is a term used to describe a lack of insight, right? Which means a patient who does not have the understanding that they are sick, so into their own condition, their own mental health, right? So there is, trying to read up on this because I made a video called a little while ago before I even understood that this was a thing, anosognosia. I never heard the word when I made that video, but it was called schizophrenia and recognizing the illness, right? And I mentioned that that was the first step you can take towards recovery. And I thought about redoing it because just all the information I've been gathering and the understanding that there's a terminology to it. So anosognosia. So if you hear that, that's kind of what it means. It means the patient does not have an insight and awareness into uh, their mental health condition. So if that's not present, they're going to be, you know, prone to relapse, uh, not taking medication, and possibly subject to violence and so forth. If that's the way it comes through them, but they're more likely to be that. So I have a little thing right here that I found on some websites. There's just a lot of information regarding it, but I'm going to just touch on a couple things here, and then I'm going to give my own understanding. And keep in mind now, this is just my own understanding. I'll tell you when it's just I'm going to read this stuff, but I'm just putting my own um, understanding to this. And so keep in mind, I am no medical health professional. I'm just a guy on YouTube who been through schizophrenia and been through the worst parts of it and managed to come through, recovered, cured, whatever you want to call it, and despite the fact that I was not supposed to, according to the doctors, diagnosed me with treatment-resistant schizophrenia. But hey, here I am. So, lack of insight or anosognosia of patients with schizophrenia into various aspects of the illness and treatment they're receiving is an important clinical issue, right? So, poor insight has been reported to be associated with neurocognitive deficits, particularly in their frontal and parietal function. So, it's pretty much the same. With poor insight, you're not able to make good judgments on, like through reasoning and understanding and taking information and coming to a good conclusion and so forth, good judgments. So, and they are saying that this has to do with your prefrontal and parietal cortex, your part of your brain. And now this is where I kind of like saying, put the brakes on this a little bit because so I made a video on what I thought schizophrenia was, and I talked about different energies and so forth. And so with that in mind, and them talking about is part of your brain, I want you to kind of, if you're somebody who's going through schizophrenia, suffering from it, or you're a parent or a guardian of somebody who is going through it, I want you to don't pay attention to that part of it so much, right? There's when I was struggling, one thing I did not do was read into schizophrenia, right? Because this one of the reasons, right? Because when you read into this stuff, everything is become so physical, and when it's almost like they leave you powerless against it, right? And if you take that as the core of the issue, then there's not much you can do, right? You're pretty much at the mercy of the medication, right? And their limitations. You can't go beyond that, right? So I'm not saying to get off the medications. That's not what I'm saying here. You got to determine that for yourselves. But what I'm saying is that even if you're on the medications, you can still transcend the rest of the symptoms, because the medications don't necessarily take away all of them for everyone. Sometimes there's still a lot going on, right? As it was in my case. So don't focus on that so much. Um, when like I didn't look into it because, like I said, it just makes you. It just creates more of a hindrance in acquiring the mental certainty that you need in order to rise above it, right? And if it's becomes a dysfunction, like a physical dysfunction within the brain, like they say you got, like, I don't know, broken brain or whatever the heck it is, what can you do about it? Right? It's not, you're there's nothing. So and it gets into your mind, and it's just gonna be there, that when things get challenging, that, oh, I can't do this because it's physical, it's physical, it's physical, it's physical, and then it's just gonna be more to wrestle with. And schizophrenia, this thing will take that and it will turn it against you. It'll use your own knowledge against you, right? So I would say don't focus so much on that. And in fact, I wouldn't even delve into that aspect of it, because you will end up just putting a stumbling block in your own way, right? Even when I didn't do that, even while I was still struggling, right? I didn't have that insight, but even after I got the insight, I didn't look into it, right? I didn't, because, like I said, it would have still been the same issue. Okay, so it says not universally or and uniformly expressed in all patients, this anosognosia, but is very, if not the most common of its manifestations, occurring in 57 to 98% of the patients. One source has it, another one has it up to 80%. So insight is an important outcome predictor. Determines treatment adherence, relapse recurrence, remission of symptoms, psychological functioning, vocational attainment, and probability of violence to self and others, as I was mentioned earlier. So there's a variety of methods that they use to judge your level of insight. There's different methods, different scales that they use, and all of them pretty much try to ascertain: do you recognize the illness? Do you recognize your need for medical treatment? And do you recognize that the hallucinations and the delusions and so forth are a product of the illness, right? And if you can say yes to all of these, then congratulations, you've got 100% on the I have insight exam. And if not, then they're going to figure you need more treatment, different methods, I guess. And but you will not go further in recovery until that insight is there, and that's the difficult part, for someone to try and show someone that they're ill, right? It's a very challenging thing. And like I said, for me, in my situation, everybody, they can come with their lists, they can come with their this, their that, and I just wouldn't recognize it. But the reason why, and I don't believe this is a, I don't believe this is so much a brain issue. It's, and I think I talked about this in that video. It's there is a imagine if somebody broke into your house, right? Somebody broke into your house and like ransacking the place and whatever it is. How would you perceive that? you would see that as a threat, right? You would it's there. The alarms are going off. There's no reason for you to doubt it, right? This is what schizophrenia is, right? It creates a world that is so real to the mind that I buy into it. I believe it. I am sold on it, right? And it doesn't just tell you that, it gives you reasons, and it builds upon itself, and it constructs this freaking walls, the structure, and you accept it, because the more you accept of it, the more it builds off itself, right? And the thing about that is, it doesn't just start like that. Sometimes, sometimes you might start hearing voices, but a lot of times it builds over years, slowly, so you don't even notice anything is happening really. And then it'll hit you full on, and then you start to go back and you start to look at the other pieces that was laying there, that was building the structure. And so when you put all that together, it becomes just even more solid, and that's what people are trying to pull you out of. It's like it's a reality that's constructed and fabricated by the mind, and people are trying to pull you out of it. So like I said, it's more than just the brain. It's a battle of energy pools, man. That's really what it is. I use that. Yeah, I'll say that. I'll leave it at that. But if it was, like I said, if it was your brain, it wouldn't be as easy as recognizing that. Oh, okay, this is just my mind, and then you could start to make decisions and kind of avoid some of the pitfalls, right? And I say it wouldn't be as easy. Not that it is easy, but that's really all you have to do to stay out of the being submerged by it, right? Now that's a difficult thing. Insight is can be gained, but once it's gained, it's not necessarily going to be maintained, right? There's people who gain insight and they'll lose it and totally buy right back into the thing that they claimed before and knew, believed to be a lie. And yet they will again buy into it and lose the knowledge and awareness that they once held, right? That's how powerful that is. And this is how, when you gain insight, it is important to hold to it, because just because you have it, it doesn't mean you can't lose it, because the thing is going to try to pull that away from you. It's going to try to pull that knowledge and get you to doubt the very thing that you knew, you know, and say it's wrong, and what you would believe before that is the truth. So you go right back, right? So it's like you're there's like a flood of water coming down, the dam broke, and then there's this water just gushing down, and you get caught up in it, right? You're just freaking flowing down, and the water's pushing you down, and there's a line that was set up, and you manage to get caught up in it. You grab a hold of that line. We'll call this line that's going across, we call that insight, right? So this allows you to gain insight. So now you're like, oh my gosh, you're able to see what's going on, right? As long as you hold to this, you can be above the water. You can see, oh my god, it's a flood and this, right? Because when you're under, you don't know what the heck's going on. You don't know what's up, what's down, what's left, what's right. You don't know anything. You're just going for the ride. But once you're able to stabilize yourself, okay, you can see everything. Okay, this is where I gotta go. All this stuff, this is all trying to kill me, right? So you keep going, you're moving, you're kind of holding on, and you're pulling and you're walking, but then another just maybe strong force just comes of water and just pushes you, and you're holding on, and you lose your grip, and you're right back under submerged, and you no longer know where you are again. You're lost. You're completely submerged, and you're don't know heads, tails, for whatever, right? You're gone until you have to hope to grab something else again, again get your bearings on, right? Grab something else, grab another line, which is again insight, right? Because there isn't just one moment you're able to gain insight. There's multiple opportunities, right? And so you're falling, you can grab onto something, and again you find yourself where you are. You're still trying to cross, right? Because your safety's on the other side, but you gotta hold on. You gotta fight that pressure. You gotta kind of keep moving, and again you risk getting swept away again if the pressure comes and you don't hold on to that awareness, right? That's how it is. It's a very deceptively, just it's very potent, but it's something that we have to keep in mind and to continually look at, right? And don't. It's also like it's like you've seen those shows, like a kid, walking with mom or something or dad, and kid, little tyke is behind, you know, and parents just ahead. They're not holding their hands or nothing. They just kind of, or maybe they were and they stopped and talking to somebody or looking at something or whatnot. And anyway, they're going and something catches Junior's attention. Maybe one of those clowns or something, and it's got a little candy and he's waving at a little kid. And he's like, come here, come here. And kids, right? Okay, just keep walking. They just walked off, right, and go off, and you know the parent turns around, Michael, 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 and they just lose their mind because the kid's gone, right? So let's call that parent more. Let's call that parent insight, I guess, right? So you end up losing your way. You end up getting kidnapped, right? And you're taken away and kidnapped. You're on this road being led to where you need to go, right? By this knowledge, this awareness, but because you got distracted by some of the hallucinations, the delusions, the whatever it is, the voices that tell you, hey, come over here, look over here, right? They start to show you things, they start to speak to you. What do? You start to engage with them. Hey, yeah, 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 and you start to joke with them. They make you laugh. They might yell at you. They might call you some names, and you start to fight back. Oh, I'm not this or I'm not that. You start to interact with them, and guess what happens? While you do that, something is being taken away from you, and you don't even know it, right? You get pulled further and further away, and then you don't even remember where the heck you were. Now you start to believing all this stuff they tell you, and you're lost again, completely doubting, was that right? Were they really trying to kill me? Were they this? I don't know. I think they were. And you're right back again, ready to go to the hospital. You're kidnapped. You're gone, right? Because you decided, for whatever reason, you got caught up into what there was being shown to you or what was being spoken to you, instead of staying on the path of what you knew, right? So you got pulled away. So this is why those people end up getting caught and end up losing what they had took them a long time to gain, perhaps, right? But a lot of times people don't understand this. People think this is like, it's just, oh, it just happens. And this, no, it's not. Doesn't just happen. There's a process to it. There's a way it happens. There's a rule to it, and it's a manipulation. It's a manipulation that's actually there to deceive you. And if you don't recognize that this is an active engagement and you have a role to play, and you have to be fixed in your mind and where you're going, and actually like resist all that stuff by letting them go and don't mess around with them, you can get caught up. A lot of times people don't recognize this. They just think it's just, oh, it's just the schizophrenia or whatever the heck it is, and just what they want to call it, and just kind of go along with it in that nature. um but it's very cunning, right? And so, like I always say, think of it as something with an intelligence. Think of it as something that's extremely intelligent and manipulative and is out to destroy you. If you don't see it like that, then you're likely to drop your guard, and you're likely to get taken for a ride, man, more than you care to have, right? When you have that insight, you tend to let go of it because you don't see the danger, right? You think it's okay to interact. And I got caught up with this too when I was working. And listen, I was working. This means I'd made considerable ground from where I was. I was afraid of my shadow, afraid of my cat, afraid of think I'm being followed by birds and all kinds of stuff. So I was, machines are talking to me, all kinds of stuff. TV is talking to me, radio is talking to me. I was afraid of everything. You know, that's what my little niece says. I'm afraid of everything. But that's kind of how I was. You know, um, but coming from that and making considerable ground enough to be in a workplace with other people, that was, the doctors thought that, I'm going to be in a long-term care facility. Maybe if I go home, maybe I might get a little job as a grocery bagger or something like that. That was the best they saw for me. But here I was working and I was doing my thing, right? A lot better than what they thought. So, but still, I was in this job, and the fellow I was working with, I was doing a shipping and receiving, and this guy I was working with, he was, I kind of hear him saying, certain, like, reading my thoughts and commenting and kind of laughing at me or something like that. And I forgot where I was in the struggle, and I started to be kind of antagonistic with him. You know what I mean? Like, I started to take it personal, and I start to, you know what I mean? Like, and then I had to remind myself, oh, like, it's the thing, right? So don't get caught up in that. But I was actually buying right back into the damn thing that I knew wasn't real, or at least I didn't wasn't clear. I was uncertain, and I wanted to maintain uncertainty until I knew for sure. So that kind of pulled me in, and to make it seem like I was certain, and I was trying to, it was just responding and reacting to him in those kind of ways, right? So it's just that easy to lose your focus and get caught up into things that you hear, and you think you see, and you kind of want to treat people, react to them with certain anger or certain kind of tones or whatnot, and or react to the voice in certain ways rather than realize this is, I need, I'm going this direction, and my focus is in that direction. I don't care about any snickers, any jokes, any fun, any yelling at me, any cursing at me, whether it's this voice, that, I don't care. I'm not looking at that. I'm looking where I'm going, right? So so that's how easy it is. Like I said, I freaking chopped down a lot of enemies on the way to where I was, and still this thing was just, it wasn't as prominent as it was, but it was still just peeping through the corners, and hanging in this shadowy background, just trying to pick at weaknesses that it's seeing in me, and try to pull me right back in. And if I was to fully engage in it, guess what? This thing would start to grow larger and larger and larger, and I would start to shrink more and more as it take over parts of my mind, and I start to doubt more and more of the things that I thought I knew, right? And it'll push me right back to where I was. But fortunately, I was stubborn and determined enough to say, you know what, I am not playing this game. And I just left it alone and just kept focusing on what I was doing. So there was a lot of talk that for at works in different times and different places, I started to lose myself, especially people not understanding where I was mentally. I wasn't like, I was still like, not almost not able to focus sometimes, because I was still trying to let go of things that was trying to holding on to me, the intrusive thoughts and so forth, right? So that to deal with. So focusing wasn't really uh, strong within me, but so people kind of, they think you're dumb, they think you're this, they think you're that. They have no idea what you have going up in your head, and I didn't really tell people about it, because it just wasn't something I care to do. Um, but I had to let all of that go and still kind of maintain myself, right, and stay on the path that I wanted to go on. So it took a lot of work. So so there's another thing I want to talk about, and that's levels. There are levels of insight, right? So the first level of insight is recognizing the illness, right? Recognizing illness. That's what I talked about earlier. This is where everybody gets to, or at least where they want you to get to, right? The doctors and your families and all that. Everybody wants you to see that you're ill, recognize you're ill, take your medication and all that stuff. That's good, but that's only the first level of insight. There's actually two more levels, right? There's three levels of insight, right? That's only the first level. That's it. There's more to it, right? But we just stop there. Oh, okay, you know you're ill. Okay, take your medication. You're adhering. And all right, see you next time. And good. That's what they say. You go to therapist. That's good enough. You're gonna take your medication. You know you're ill. Good. See you next time, right? So maybe you got therapy and stuff like that. But that's for next level, I guess. The next level is uh, not just recognizing you're ill, but recognizing that you actually have some power in how the symptoms play out, right? So you might be on a medication, or not on medication, but if you either way, if their symptoms come, you can diffuse them. You can unravel them, right? They don't have so much power that they can really set you down that a roller coaster a ride and put you in a hospital. You can navigate through. And there's some people I've seen as well online who stated that they live with schizophrenia and they manage without medication, but they just know how to deal with the symptoms. And what the things they always say is, I don't pay attention to the symptoms, right? I just let it. I just ignore it, which is exactly right. You just ignore the symptoms, right? Um, that's the second level. You can actually get through, and there is a study now that they found where I think 30% of patients are able to live without medications, right? Because they just know how to manage the symptoms, and now is becoming a bigger thing that they are looking into, where people are able to manage certain symptoms without medication. So that's a real thing, man. That's a real thing. And I was there at one point, the second level, right? I heard people who are on medications have symptoms, and yet they are able to unravel them. They're able to see through them, to kind of navigate their way out, and don't get pulled in. Sometimes it's more of a struggle. Sometimes than other times, right? It's more of a struggle, but they get through it, and they don't get pulled under. So that's the second level. And I lived in that one for a little bit. Yeah, you can still live a life. You can still do all the stuff that you want to do. It's just you're gonna have symptoms here and there, and you can just kind of navigate through it. But the third level, and this is where a lot of people don't realize they can get to. The only time people tend to get to here is when they're taking medications for a while, and then when they stop, no symptoms return. Right. So that's a good way for when you're taking medication. That's the best outcome, is when you stop taking it and nothing comes back. You're good. You're golden. Right. That's the outcome you want. Unfortunately, sometimes when you stop taking medications, for a lot of people, symptoms come back. But the level here is to know, and it's knowledge, understanding, man. Like I'm telling you, there's something here, and I really wish therapists and stuff would delve into this, because if you have the knowledge, they have the awareness, and you have the knowledge and the understanding that you can navigate through the symptoms, then you can keep going until you get beyond the symptoms. You don't have to live with all that forever. And if you are aware of this, because the problem is, you have to set your intention on your destination, right? If you don't, you'll just wander around in the damn place, even if you can recognize what is an enemy and what is this, and you can avoid them, right? You can do all that, but you can understand, but you can do that and not know that there's an exit. There's an exit to this darkness. There's an exit to this forest of mist that you're wandering around in. And if you recognize that, then you can start going towards the exit, right? It's just it's like I said, the mind. What the mind creates, the mind can destroy, right? And what the mind creates, the mind can sustain. And this is where a lot of people who have that second level of insight, they just allow the mind to sustain its creation, but they learn to have a balance with it, right? You can stop there, but you can go beyond that. If you can reach that level to where you're not sucked in and pulled under by the illness, you can navigate all that with the by maintaining that level of insight. Why can't you go all the way? 100% you can go all the way, right? Because remember, it's not just a brain thing. It is it's an energy thing, if you want to call it that, right? It's a will that's pulling against your will, and this will is enforcing its will on you, and you've got to enforce your will, through your determination, to your faith, to your hope, to your, you know what I mean, to your persistence. And if you can do that and continue with a consistency and a determination and a persistent attitude, a hopeful attitude, you will break through the illusion of this mist, this fog that it has you trapped in, and you'll come through on the other side, right? This is what people are not aware of. That's the third level of insight, to completely break free of the illusion of the mist, and to come out above and beyond schizophrenia. So that's my. I'm gonna really end this video here. It's going on long enough, then longer than I hoped again. Um, but yeah, man, that's it. You know, it's not complex. It's listen, it's simple, but sometimes it's the simple things that people today have a problem dealing with. Everybody's so educated. Everyone want to give you all this science and this and all this that, but sometimes the what you need to do is put your ear to the ground. That's where truth is, right? Sometimes you need to humble yourself, right? Because the truth is low. It's not necessarily all the way up here. You gotta do all this big studying and all this stuff. It's not necessarily there sometimes. It's this. It's us having to bring ourselves down to simplicity, and while we're trying to make things more complex. And that's what gets us is the fact that we, it's become so complex that nobody knows what the heck schizophrenia is, and that there's all this and all this that, and everyone's trying to figure out what to do. But it's like it's actually simple, and it's about bringing our minds down to a simple level of thinking and moving forward that way. This is why so many people miss it, because it's just everyone's just so caught up in terminologies and anosognosia and whatever, all these, all these neurocognitive, all this stuff, and it's like that's not even it. It's not, you know what I mean? Like it shows stuff, but it's like this, you're missing the whole point. You're going freaking in that direction. The thing is the other direction, right? That's kind of why we miss so much of it, and it's just it's able to go back to basic principles that we learn as kids. Your parents always tell you, you can be whatever you want, you can do, you can believe, and you can this and you can that. And then suddenly we grow up and we no longer believe any of the stuff that we teach our kids that we were taught, and now we're just, everything just changes once we grow up and we start to think and we start to reason and we start to get more knowledge in this, and then the simplicity is gone, it's lost, and now everything becomes so complex, right? And it doesn't help that the medical professionals aren't even aware themselves, because they go to school and they pack in all this knowledge, and they themselves can't get down to the simple stuff. They can't even see that anymore, right? A lot of times. So, but the third level, if you can get, I think that's where therapists, if they can focus more attention on that and really to build the foundation on, because listen, I forgot what proverb this says, but it says, a man, he that has no rule over his own spirit is as a city that is broken down and without walls, right? And I talked about that before. This is what your mind is when you are influenced or tormented by schizophrenia. This is what happens. Your mind is broken down. It's destroyed. The foundations are been broken up, and you are driven off the land. You're hiding. You're captured. Whatever it is, man. I like captured. You're captured, right? You're captured, and your city's burnt down and broken down, and you're done, right? So what happens now is you and a lot of people get lost because there's so much going on in your mind. There's pulls that way, there's fears, there's anxieties, there's hallucinations, there's delusions. Your mind is intrusive thoughts, right? You're How the heck do you rein all this in? It just seems such a hopeless situation. It seems so astronomically large and impossible, but you have the power to calm all that. You understand? And it's just if you can recognize that and just don't even focus on everything, just focus on one thing, right? Because what you got to do now is build back that foundation. This is what they need to work on, helping you build the foundation, right? Because you're going to build a structure. And this structure is going to sit on something and it needs to be something solid, right? I talked about a foundation in one of my other videos, right? But they need to help you set something solid, not just with medication. That's one form of it, but something else like for me, the foundation. Once you become aware, right? Once you're aware you're ill and stuff, you need to start. Okay, you recognize you're in captivity and you need to get out, right? So now you can start actually making some moves and you can do some things and you can escape. And now you're back in your land and now you gotta freaking conquer every inch of this land. This is what all this stuff that's going on that seems to overwhelm is because your mind is your kingdom. It is your castle. It is your domain, and it's been invaded, and your walls, that's your barrier, your protection, been torn down, and your village been your land's been ransacked, your castle burned, everything's down, right? So you gotta go. Either you leave that up to the enemies, and you freaking live, you know, off and for the rest of your life, in dealing with this stuff, or you go back and you arm yourself and you go and you chop every single one of them down and take back what was yours. That's exactly what you have to do. It's a serious business. You know what I mean? Not physically. I'm not talking about physically now, in case anybody misunderstand me. It's mentally. You have to arm yourself. You have to prepare yourself because this is a battle, and it's a battle that if you don't fight it, it will fight you and it will crush you. You got no choice in the matter. It's either fight or be fought, kill or be killed. So you know what I mean. So what they need to do is set you right for this battle and build this foundation, right? Because you're going in there and you need to set up everything, right? You got to fight to get back in there. And you get back in there, you got to build this, you got to build yourself, your fortress and everything back up. So for me, the foundation was, like I said, I built mine on biblical principles, right? Which is, uh, that was one of them that I realized, and that when I just about Proverbs that I mentioned, that was something that really just caught me off. When I saw that, it shook me because I just saw like that's me, that was me, and it just like blew my mind because I understood it so much, right? And then resist the devil and he shall flee. And as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And whatsoever things that you ask for when you pray, believe that you have received it, and you shall have it. So it's not believe you're going to receive it. It's believe you ask for it, believe you have it. Right? So I have to live as if I have what I am seeking. Right? And that's kind of where it is. So for me, that's the foundation that I helped, that worked it into for me, right? So when things came and voices, this and intrusive thoughts and what, I just let it go because that's how I resist. I let it go, right? And as I think I am in my heart, that's what I am. So I start to think. I'm thankful for peace. I'm thankful for normalcy. I'm thankful for quiet. I'm thankful for being free of all this stuff. And I just walked in that direction. So that was my foundation. So whenever all these heavy stuff come at me, I fall back on that. So they couldn't push me back because I gave that biblical scriptures more power, and to me, they represent far greater truth than all the stuff that was coming at me, right? So by holding to this, they couldn't push me back, even though I was on no medication. I'm in the middle of the freaking storm, and they couldn't push me back because I was standing my ground, and then I was clothed in patience. I was clothed in determination, in courage. I had the shield of faith. I had the light of hope. They couldn't win, right? Because this is an invisible war. It's not a war you can fight with sticks and stones and swords and guns. It's not, you know what I mean? It's in a space that you can't really physically attack. So your weapons, everything you have, your tools, all the stuff. It's not gonna be physical, so you gotta know exactly what you have. And then you gotta arm yourself, you gotta clothe yourself, and you gotta go out there and you gotta use this stuff. Patience, courage, determination. These are freaking things we teach our kids every freaking day. And yet here we are on this land and we need these things. It's not just something you use to accomplish your only your physical goals. These are things you use to accomplish these kind of goals as well, right? But we don't trust them because we're taught that everything is just into the brain, the brain, the brain, the brain, the brain. And so we cast everything else aside. The very things that are there to help us, we toss them aside. Because why? They're not good enough, right? And so what else are we going to use, right? There's nothing, you know what I mean? So this is what I think the therapists need to really help people do. Build that foundation. You know, whatever you want to build it on, you build it on that. That's just what biblical stuff was I use for mine because to me, I'm certain of that. Some of these other stuff, I don't know what they're gonna say or whatever it is, so I don't know if I could trust that. But for me, that's what I trust. So I was able to stand on that because, you know what I mean. Like it was, I I was able to be in all kinds of foolishness, and I would never wasn't pushed back because I kept reminding myself of that, and I was able to navigate like all kinds of nonsense, right? All kinds of nonsense, and I didn't sink. I didn't get pushed back, right? I moved all the way through it. So if they can do that and have and people to have confidence in the patience and the resiliency, all these good stuff, man. These stuff we need to remember these stuff. We need to pull these things, dust those off and revisit those and to pursue those and to not really watch about how long this is gonna take, how long that's gonna take. Just let the process go and it'll build you up in more ways than you realize. So that's kind of I'm gonna end this video right now because it's going on longer than I was going for like 15 minutes. But anyway, yeah, that's it. Schizophrenia and anosognosia. Anosognosia. I was problem have problems remembering that. Anosognosia. So our lack of insight or schizophrenia and the power of insight, man. Recognizing the illness, recognizing that you need for treatment and recognizing that the hallucinations and delusions and so forth are due to the illness and there's three levels of insight: recognizing the illness, being able to diffuse the illness, and then recognizing that we can go even beyond that and totally transcend it, overcome it, put it underneath our feet, and rise above and beyond. Until next time, peace.